All right, I started the recording. I apologize. I have been out with a health issue with my heart. I have an electrical problem in my heart that suddenly came up Monday a week ago. I caught it on my watch. And I'd had an EKG the week before, went back to the doctor, and she goes, yeah, there's something really going on here. And so I have an electrical blockage, not a vascular blockage like they put stents in for. This is an electrical blockage. And they're still trying to figure out how we're going to deal with it. But so what it means is my heart races crazy heights. Those are your athletes. You know what it's like when you've been out working out and you're pushing yourself and you can kind of feel it in your chest where you're kind of reaching that point of, your heart's really pumping really hard and you can feel it working that way. I feel that all the time. My heart rate's somewhere between 110 and 135, 38, pretty much all the time. So, one, that makes me very tired. Two, it makes me lose my breath pretty easily without much exertion right now. So hopefully we'll get that resolved soon and my life gets back to normal. But now I want to, the other thing it does, it makes me faint if I'm not careful. My blood pressure drops suddenly and I'll hit the floor. And so I'm having to be real careful standing up and sitting down. So last time we met, we were talking about how to work on this project we're doing, how to determine, and I want to blow this up a bit, how to determine okay, we want to be able to go into this cell right here and determine if that intersection of dates meets a requirement in order to do that. How do we do that? How do we determine if a date is between two dates? There's no magic function in Excel.
I use the and function.
One. So somebody else was saying something, I missed it.
I'm sorry, I think I was using the and function.
You're using the and function. Okay, so what are you using in the function to test it?
Doing equals or less than, and doing two of those. So it has to be equals or less than the first date and equal or less than the last date, and anything in between those.
Okay, so we need to kind of a project plan, a programming plan if we're doing this so you can get the logic down of it. So the first thing we're going to determine is date equal to or greater than the start date? And is it equal to or less than the end date? So do you think you could write a function to determine if it's equal to or greater than the start date? Could you write that? How would you write that? So Excel, you break down into little parts. You don't try to do it all at once. You'll get lost and confused. So can you guys see this over here? There we go. So is the date. So if I want to know if it's between this date, I'd use an if statement, right? So we know we'd use an if. And then we'd have some value there. Value. And then if it's true, and then if it's false. And we do the same thing down here. And the nice thing about this is that now we can combine these. If we combine them, we can write an and statement in there and put one of these in. And so if we write an and statement where the value is equal to or greater than the start date, or it's less than the start date. And then you put a comma, and you do the same thing for the other one. And what's going to be the result of the and statement? What's going to be the result of an and statement? What is the result of the and statement? What do you get out of an and statement?
It has to fulfill both requirements.
But well, what's the result even if it doesn't? Do what now? What's your output from it?
Oh, is it true or false?
Yeah, you're exactly right. Is it true or is it false? That's all you get out of an and statement. True or false. And if you can get a true or false, you can put that inside of an if statement. And so you can kind of keep going. Go one step, then a bigger step, and then an even bigger step. And so you do excel, advanced excel, in these little bitty steps. If you try to do this, if you go out on the web and you try to copy somebody's formula, what they're doing, you'll not know what they were trying to do, and it probably won't work for you. You'll get frustrated. How many had that problem with their homework? How many played with the homework? Okay. All right. So we didn't do a lot with the homework. All right. So I want you to write out, we've got a date set up here on the worksheet. I want you to do the and statement, and I want you to go to the third date, the third, and test to see if it's between those two dates. Should get a true or false in there. Should be able to put this, an and statement like this, in there.
Dr. Bailey,
Yes, ma'am.
since you're screen sharing with us on one computer, can you move your laptop to where we can see the board instead of that canvas thing? Because we can't really see what that says from here. Or I can't.
No, I completely understand. Let me see if this will help. Let's see if I can move it closer than that.
Much better.
Okay,
Thank you.
not a problem. Problem is I gotta have, this is like screen share in here with it up on the big screen here for everybody. So let's go through and put in the and statement. So do it one step at a time, make one work. So you can go equals, you're gonna be using this date, is equal to, or I want it to be greater than this date. It says it's true if I just do a simple check. Now I can go in, take this, put in the and statement. Go G and then come out here on the end, put a comma in. G2 is equal to equals, gotta compare it to something. Okay, something wrong with it. I know that. So if the first one is true, we know the first one's true. Why? The first test is true. Why? Trying to find out what's wrong with our equation, because we know that this date makes that true. This should be true if it's just that date. So we can break that out again. If you go equals this date is equal to, greater than this date. Actually, that's the wrong date. Sorry. You can take one above. This date is equal to or greater than this date. That should be a true statement. Okay, go ahead, make the change. It's a true statement. If I do the same thing below, so I go to this date, it's got to be less than or equal to this date. Okay. Now they're both true. I know that these both work because I can mentally test that equation. I can tell that October 3rd falls between October 3rd and October 8th. You see that? Yes? No? Are you with me? I'm not getting any feedback. That's why I'm asking questions. I'm getting people, a lot of people staring. Are we getting it online here, guys? Okay. Now we can, go ahead. So you start building your and statement by creating a series of tests. And so we have two tests in this. Is the date up above, up here at the top, right there, between this date and this date? And so we did one test that says, is that date equal to or greater than that one? And is it less than or equal to that one? And we did it here. Now we can combine those two tests because we know they work into an and statement. We can put them in one place. So now we can come up. This is where it can get easy for you. We go through and go, okay, I'm here. I'm going to copy this one. That's a test. Copy. Mistake. Up here, and we'll put an and statement in. A, parenthesis, out to the back side of it, comma. Put in the next one. Paste it in, Control V, close paren, and enter. And it now says that that date, the 3rd, is between the 3rd and the 8th. We can verify that through our own understanding. We know it's true. No matter what the computer is telling us, we can check it and see. Does that make sense? So you find something you can verify. Then you continue to add to it or make it bigger. So in this case, what I want to do is I want to put a 1 in that field if it's true. And if it's not, I don't want to put anything in there. How do I do that?
Edit the if statement.
Say it loudly here for me.
You can use an if statement for the 1 true, but instead of putting 0, could you actually go into it and say, just not put anything?
You can say it, and there's a way to do that. But I want to put in, there are two ways to do it actually, but we'll try one of these. Now we're going to put in an if statement. You go if, open paren, and your and is your test for your if statement. Put a comma, and what are we going to do if it's true? We're going to put in a 1. It can be anything, but we're going to put in a 1. And if it's not true, what I want to do is either not put anything in, and we can leave it blank. We'll come back to that in just a second. So that's true right there. Okay. But now I want to pull it so it tests all the way across. Not only do I want it to test all the way across, I want it to test going down. I have a formula that works, but now I've got to get the fixed parameters so that they're stable. So when I say fixed parameters, it means I can always reference a cell at a certain row or column, and when I copy it, the Excel will know that that's where it's supposed to go and look. You can actually have it to a very specific cell. We do that through a series of $signs on the reference. So if I always want to reference column A, I use a $sign before the A. And if there's a cell that I want to reference, A1, all the time, that means this is an absolute value at that location. Okay? But if I go $1, that's not the same. Yes, in this case, it's getting it from the same location, but this means that it's getting it from cell 1, no matter what column it's in. Always from row 1 instead of A. So if I copied this across the table, I would get B, $1, C, $1, D, so on and so forth. I can do this in the other direction, where I get $A and a 1. And in this case, the column always stays the same. And that becomes important in this formula, because you've got to reference rows and columns in this case. So in this case, in G2, I always want to go up to that row, right? I always want to go to that row. So it's the column I don't care about. So I'm going to put a $sign, and you can hit F4, and you can cycle through these. Right there. So I want the second row to always be there for me. I'll go over and I'm going to do this on G2 here too. Okay? Now we have to get column B and column D to be the same each time. So I'm going to go to, always going to be F4, cycle through, always column B, always column D. And I might get that logic wrong. All right, I may get it completely reversed. You will probably get it reversed. It's okay, you test it. Because you know the first one worked, the other, you haven't changed anything at this point, so when you hit an enter, everything should still work. But now, when you go to copy this, you suddenly have 1s and 0s popping up where you can say, I have a 1 every place that this project is running on those. Do I have 0s on these? No. I'm going to go back and change that to the first one. I don't want 0s to pop up. I want to have just nothing pop up. In order to do nothing, you use a double quote. And cool. The formula looks like this. We got that working, right? But that's not complicated enough for Phil Bailey. I want to know if this is an actual work day in the process. True? We want to know if it's a work day. So how am I going to figure out if this is a work day? We did this already. Up here. Right there. That row. So we have zeros and ones telling us if it's a work day. So what do we do with that? I'm trying to kickstart your brains here, guys.
Like if only?
Well, just add it to your and statement. You got two statements in and's not limited to two statements. You can make it three statements in this case. So you would go right here, put a comma in, and so we want to know if this cell, and we're always going to stay on the row, is equal to 1, right? So work day is 1. If it's not a work day, it's 0. So we want to know if it's equal to 1, but we want to make sure that this isn't running across on this, so we're going to cycle through F4 right there. Now when we go to do it, get in there, and it didn't show up here. Why? It was there a minute ago.
Now it's labeled, it's not a work day.
It's not a work day. So we drag the formula across. There we go. Sure. Don't think about the formula, guys. That's a mistake. What you need to think about is the process to get to the formula. I'm not trying to just teach you how to do Excel. That's not the objective here, although I do want you to be able to do Excel. Don't take me wrong. What I want you to do is to think about how to break down a complex task into minuscule parts that you can work on and fix and test. It's a critical skill that most of you don't have because you haven't been doing this in almost any other type of course that you've had. If you had programming, you've done this. If you've had logic, you've done this. And I'm not talking about programming logic, I'm talking about logic in the philosophy department. So you want to go through and you want to break it down into these little bitty parts that you can test each time. And you can have confidence that what you created, the bigger thing, that looks really complicated, that formula does. And if you told me I had to sit down and just write that out, I probably couldn't do it. So don't expect yourself to be able to do it, simply be able to write it out. You're smarter than I am if you can do it. And there are people who can do it, okay? I can't do that. I have to break it down into these little parts that I can make work, and then I can put it with another part that I make work and another part that I make work. And so you get a series of victories going, and then pretty soon you're answering the bigger question. And so you start with the question that you want to answer in breaking this down. You start with the question, what is it that I am trying to answer? What question am I trying to answer? And if you can do that, you can break it down into a series of parts. You can come up with a series of answers that you can combine into a larger thing. And you honestly don't have to create one, how do I say this? You don't have to create all these intermediate steps. I did this to make it easier for you. For instance, this equation right here, there's no reason why this equation can be put, right here. Now look how much more complicated it's looking. Now you got to make sure that G2 is the same each. G2. We're going to go to the, yeah. It's, got to go through and rotate the absolute values on it. Well, if I got that right, no, I'm missing one more thing. But you can incorporate all of these. I just need to go. I think I got this. This should be G, not A on G2. H2 in this case. And we can keep it as simple or as complex as you need it to break it down into parts. You can keep adding bigger and bigger chunks of this, and you can get, I've had equations that were more than 1,000 characters long. Something breaks in there, it's a nightmare to figure out what's going on because it's 1,000 characters that you're trying to debug. There are ways to do it, but keep it simple. Break it down into parts, answer the questions as you need to. So now we'll take off the formatting that we've got. So now I should be able to take this, I should be able to go across this page, and I'm going to drag this down the page. I don't get any responses, why not? It's because we haven't completed this. Does that make sense to you at this point? How many feel like they're lost? Let's go that way. Kind of lost? Okay, you're allowed to be lost. All right. This is probably the most complex thing you've done in Excel since you came to Carson Newman. This is very typical of the type of stuff that you would do out when you're working for companies. And in this case, I'm applying it to a calendar. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be anything. You can put together a production schedule, do the whole work here. So going back to our original chart, we have task A starts on October 3rd. It's 5 days long, and it completes on October 8th. Right? And we have 5 tasks in this one, all the way through October 16th. You get that part? Do we know how we got the start date was an arbitrary assignment? And then we used our A, B, C, D, E bubbles to figure out when these all start. And then we applied the number of days for duration to get the start and end dates. You felt comfortable with that when we were doing bubbles, right? Do you see the bubbles up there in your head? Can you see them, how that would work? So you would have let's erase some of this. I know it's been a while. That's why I'm going to be a lot more patient about this. So we have A. What's the duration of A? And it can start on day what? Day 0. Right? Start on day 0, and it's going to last 5 days, right? 5 days. So now we got 0 and 5. So if we're starting on October 3rd, that's an arbitrary assignment. That's just the date we picked. Okay, customer says, I want to start October 3rd. All right, so you pick October 3rd. So this is 10/3/20. Once you know that date, you should be able to calculate this date, the end date. Yes, we're all there together? So now we can go to task B. Task B starts after, no, task B starts, it's not sequential. We've determined that we're going to start task B a day later. So it's starting on the 4th. So these two are not related, because this doesn't have to complete before this one does. And so you create this little table from your bubble chart. We all seem to be pretty comfortable doing this one, okay? But taking this and interpreting it into this is your next step. Sometimes I give you this, or you'll be given that. These are the dates you have to start on. Or you'll be given one date you have to start on. And then you have to determine the start and stop of each of the tasks within the project. Then you're going to create a Gantt chart like this one. So how do I turn it into bars at this point? Let's just randomly think about that. So we know this is coming from over there. We know how we're going to create the ones and zeros on this. So how are we going to add the colored bars to it, which was the assignment? Yes, you can do conditional formatting here. Exactly right. So you can come right here. You highlight the whole range that you want to be involved in. Now, I'm not going to highlight up here at the top where it's a work day. We were working on that. And you go to conditional formatting. Highlight cell rules. And you can say greater than 0. We can choose the way we want to do this. I want to do a custom format. So I get to choose the font. I get to choose the fill. In this case, I'm going to use green. Oh, no specific reason. Pick any color. Font, going to come down and I'm going to say, okay, I don't really care what the font is. but I want to use a font color with this, not just a background. Okay, so you can take those. So everything turns green right now. Okay. That's not what I want. Go back to traditional formatting. Look at, we'll clear the rules. Yeah, clear the rules for cells. There we go. Highlight it again. And, this is just a simple way to do this. I just created a new rule. I'd rather have control. I want to format all the cells based on their values. So if the value, the number, equal to 1, I want to, what's the range? Okay. Equal to 1. Set the format. Don't care what the font is. We want to use the fill right now to green. That should work. Question is, what am I doing wrong? Back to my equation. That should work. Choose the correct one. Use the formula to tell which one's the format. Do just one of these. So try and do the whole area. So guys, I've done this 1,000 times. So I'm stuck. I've done what I thought should work.
Do you think it's because of the formulas in the blocks, maybe, or?
No, it shouldn't be. But, so how do I resolve this? I'll post an addendum at the end of the class meeting today telling you how to do this, what I did wrong. class. But how would you resolve this? I already know what I'm going to go do when I leave class here today to fix this. What would that be? YouTube or Microsoft or any Excel site, kind of walk you through it and say, okay, I'm close. All I got to do is get these squares to light up green, the ones that got ones in them, or pink, or whatever other color you want to use. And then I got to make the ones go away. How do I make the ones go away?
Make them green too.
You make them the same color as your background. You don't really make, that's a trick question. You don't really make them go away. You just make them not visible. So when you print, it won't show up. Seems like a trick, right? It works.
Why do you want to hide it like that, though? Why do you want to change the font color to whether you're like, been there, but when you turn out, there's no green?
Well, they're not going to be visible even on your screen once you do this. I can already go do this. So if I highlight this row and I change the background color on this row, let's do the first, we'll do the font color, we'll do the font color. Now I have a bar that shows up just as a bar. It's one continuous unit.
But why do we want to show it like that?
Because it's part of what's called a Gantt chart. It's very common in business to use these types, this type of tool in order to express visually the duration of a project. And you can have Gantt charts that print out on paper that go for miles, because you're building a house, that's a year project. So you'd have one going for a year like that.
So we need to figure out how to put the color into the.
What you're going to do is a conditional format. So that's all you're going to, and that's where the problem is. I've either left something out in the format, I need to go back and look. It's one of those things I've done so many times, I didn't think I needed to look at it again, and I should have gone back and looked at it before class. I apologize. That's all you need. It's a conditional formatting issue. So when you go to do your search on YouTube or such, look for conditional formatting, color, and value. Those are the two things you want to look at. And you didn't have to have ones in there. You could have had true or false or anything else in that. Or if you really want to get complicated, you could actually use the if statement in the true part of it to turn both the font the color you want and background of the cell the color you want, and undo it when you get to a false statement. Because you want this to be dynamic, so you want this to work on its own. So if I say, hey, we're not going to start on October 3rd, there have been problems, we're going to wait and start until December 3rd, you want all the dates to shift, and you want these all to be recalculated now, because that's going to be something different. Does it make sense? Okay, so I will post something related to this after my next class, and we'll go from there, guys. Okay? Any questions?
I had a question for you, sir.
Okay.
With the duration time, the 5 days, so we're not worried about the fact that because of the weekend, it turned out to be like 4 days, for the.
No, it's because, yeah, it's 5 days. Whatever it comes out to be right now, we're going to leave it at that. That's a complexity that we'll add later.
Okay.
And what we're doing is we're creating a bigger, starting with a really small project, we're going to add more components to this as we go. Okay, and you will turn this in for a 100-point assignment, but we have a couple more classes on this yet. Okay, and I want us to do most of this in class. Okay, I won't let you do it all in class. I will give you additional assigned tasks that you got to go in and insert to this. But once we have it set up, it's really easy to do. You just have to think through it.
Okay.
All right?
Is there anything that's
That's great.
We need to turn it tonight, sir.
Grades will be posted this afternoon. I found out some of my grades aren't showing up. I still have 3 tests to grade because somebody owed me one. Didn't make the last test date, and we just made those up, so I can go ahead and post those as we're kind of going through this. Okay. All right, and I'll have those up this afternoon. As a whole, you guys are by far the best class I've had in 302. I'm impressed. I really am. That's saying something. I've had some really bad classes in 302. I know it's different than it was, but man. Okay, I will see you guys Monday.
Sir, I have a question.
Hang on a second here.